Hi everybody, I'm Angelika Simpson from Stardust Express. I'm so happy and excited to be hosting this regular show on Tuesday evenings, where I will be sharing my knowledge and interest in alternative medicine, archaeology, my interest in where we as a species come from, for how long we might have been on this planet, and what is our real history. I'll be inviting some of the most inspiring people in my life. I will be sharing with you weird and wonderful information about our origin, about star constellations that influence us, to open your mind and your perception of our world. I intend to give you information that is not easy to get elsewhere, looking again at the things going on around us. A lot of interesting mix that will open your mind. My show is about truth issues, mysteries, new physics, consciousness, metaphysics, health, spirituality, science, music, sacred sites, psychology. Hello everybody, this is Angelika Simpson from Stardust Express. I have got 4 interesting videos again for you, and after presenting them I will continue my natural vision improvement work, and I hope you join me for that. Let's start with my first video. It's from Bright Insight, and it's called The Eye of the Sahara is the Location of Atlantis. Recently, I presented the first video from Bright Insight where they presented their case that the location of Atlantis might be in Mauritania, in the Sahara, North Africa. And this video, I think, is fantastically done again. And they are making their case even more clear. And I have to say, it sounds perfectly plausible, whatever they are presenting. Enjoy this video.
In my first 2 videos on the topic of the lost city of Atlantis, I connected the dots on more than a dozen similarities between Plato's description of Atlantis to that of the Ricat structure, which is commonly referred to as the Eye of the Sahara and is located in a remote region of northwest Africa in the country of Mauritania. And my argument in those videos was that these similarities are so numerous and so precise that the Ricat structure should be considered as the most likely location for this lost ancient civilization. However, nothing is certain, and it is undoubtedly the subject of much debate. But if after watching those first 2 videos you still doubted the possibility that the Ricat structure could be the location of Atlantis, well, in this video, I'm going to share with you some new details that I just came across that makes the case that the Eye of Africa is not just the most likely location of Atlantis, but the connection of these added details I'm about to share makes this case so compelling that it's practically definitive. So let me jump right into these details, and afterwards I'll connect the dots on everything so we can see exactly what we're dealing with here. Like I stated in my first video, the legend of Atlantis originates from the ancient Egyptians, and the Greek lawmaker Solon recorded this information while visiting Egypt some 2,600 years ago, and the information was passed down through 6 generations to Plato, who published the account of Atlantis in the Timaeus and Critias dialogues some 2,400 years ago, and is apparently the only reason why we know about the legend of Atlantis today. Plato stated that the king of the capital of Atlantis was named Atlas, who was the firstborn son of Poseidon, and of course, like I mentioned before, Poseidon had 10 children through 5 sets of twins, and each one of those 10 children went on to rule each of those 10 kingdoms that made up the empire of Atlantis. Now, remember the name Atlas and hold that thought for a moment as I share something else that will connect the dots on this new information. There is a group of people that used to be referred to as the Maori. However, in modern times they are now known as the Berber people, which inhabit a region of northwest Africa. A region once referred to as Mori, but now known as Maghreb, which essentially makes up modern-day Numidia, Morocco, West Algeria, and Mauritania. In fact, the name Mauritania comes from the Maori people. Now, does anyone happen to know the name of who was said to be the first king of Mauritania? Well, it was someone who just so happened to be named Atlas, the legendary king of the Maori people. What a coincidence. But of course, there can be no possible connection to Atlas, the king of Atlantis, because after all, there is simply no way that Atlantis could ever have been in the remote region of Northwest Africa. Now hold that thought for a moment too, as I share something else with you that you've likely never seen or heard of before. There was an ancient Greek man named Herodotus who lived some 2,500 years ago, who you may be familiar with as being known as the father of history, made famous for his documentation of the Greco-Persian Wars. Herodotus was born nearly 75 years after Solon had died, and again, Solon was the person who documented the story of Atlantis from the ancient Egyptians. Herodotus himself also died when Plato was just 2 years old, so he never knew either of them, and subsequently died many years before Plato had ever published the account of Atlantis. One of Herodotus' notable achievements was developing what was then the most accurate mapping of the known inhabited world at the time of 450 BC. First, let's orient ourselves here. We can clearly see Italy, the Mediterranean Sea, the countries that surround it, the Caspian Sea, the Red Sea, the Nile Delta, to name a few notable features. And let me transition to a different version of the map so we can see things more clearly, but if you look to the left, what do you see there? That's right, the word Atlantis, which is shown to be located south of the Pillars of Hercules, or the Strait of Gibraltar, and positioned in northwest Africa. Let me first say that I do not know how or why Herodotus came to this conclusion, as this is something that I need to research more, but I look forward to any insight that people will be sharing in the comments related to his development of this map and why he claimed that Atlantis was in that specific location. You'll also notice on this map the detailing of a mountain chain just south of the Strait of Gibraltar, known today as the Atlas Mountains, which are also known to be home of the Berber people, which I mentioned earlier. And these mountains were in fact named after Atlas, the first king of Mauritania. You know, something else that's interesting to point out, when you research Atlas, the king of Mauritania, there seems to be no connection to Atlantis. I assume that this is related to the fact that nobody has ever considered that the location of Atlantis could be hiding in plain sight in the Western Sahara Desert in what is now Mauritania. Let me take a quick moment to thank John for leaving this outstanding comment, which brought the information of the first king of Mauritania as well as Herodotus' map to my attention, something that I was otherwise unaware of, and I suspect that goes to most everyone else watching this video. So let me clarify where we're at right now. There is a 2,500-year-old map that annotates the location of Atlantis in northwest Africa, seemingly in the exact location of the Ricat structure. And this map was created by the so-called Father of History, a trusted source of documentation praised by modern-day historians for his ability to systematically document information in vivid detail. Then we have this mysterious and incredibly unique structure in Mauritania known as the Ricat. This structure just so happens to be made of concentric circles, just as Plato had stated. But not only that, it consists of the precise amount of rings, 3 that would be of water and 2 of land. And on top of that, it just so happens to be the precise size of how Atlantis was described, measuring 23.5 kilometers or 14.5 miles across when computed in modern-day measurements. It also has an opening to the south that would match Atlantis' description of connecting to the sea, and in fact, its very appearance today seems to suggest that it did. It has mountains to the north, and not only that, the mountains to the north contained rivers. The entire area surrounding the Ricat is a large level plain. The sides of Atlantis were said to be steep towards the side of the sea, and the Adra Highlands located in this area have a steep 1,500-foot drop from cliffside to its base. Even more significantly, the center island of the Ricat produces fresh spring water, just as Plato specified, and this is despite the wells in the surrounding area producing exclusively salt water, which also is further evidence that this site was once under the ocean. The area around the Ricat has an abundance of black, red, and white color stone. And Atlantis was said to have an abundance of elephants, which elephants exist in Mauritania today, and depictions of elephants can be seen in cave art close to the Ricat structure. There are even relics including pottery shards, arrowheads, and other evidence that a civilization once lived there, yet archaeologists have no idea what civilization they belong to or when. And all of this is in Mauritania, where people who were once known as the Maori people were led by a legendary king whose name was Atlas, the same exact name as the king of Atlantis. But on top of all of this, it just so happens to be in the exact location that is annotated on an ancient map that was created by who we refer to as the father of history. I mean, this is an X marks the spot if there ever was one, especially when you consider the nature of the many precise similarities between the Rikat structure and Plato's description of Atlantis. Now for me, this is more than compelling. This is Atlantis, despite the fact that yes, this site today is nearly 1,300 feet above sea level. Because the scientific explanation for the Rikat's creation would make sense for it to be Atlantis when you simply compare it to what Plato had stated about Atlantis' destruction, describing how an earthquake caused Atlantis to sink into the depths of the ocean. Perhaps that earthquake was the Rikat itself. For example, scientists believe it went through multiple processes of being lifted up and down as its subsurface dome collapsed and later lifted again, a process that was repeated multiple times and creating the concentric circles that we see today. I mean, geologists literally describe it as a dome, so the subsurface dome collapsed, Atlantis sank, also explaining the earthquake. I mean, this seems fitting, especially when we acknowledge all of the matching precise similarities to what Plato had said, such as the concentric circles, specifically 3 of water and 2 of land, its precise size, and everything else. It certainly seems definitive to me as this far exceeds coincidence. And you know, that reminds me, I received a comment from someone claiming to live in Mauritania and going on to mention that locals have seen various fish skeletons in the Rikat following rainstorms. If this is true, I might be willing to pay as much as $1,000 for evidence of that. If it can be video recorded in such a way that any viewer would see and know that the evidence was not planted, and if the video included detailed panorama shots of the Rikat, plus video of the GPS location, etc. If this is true, well, I can't help but think that the significant difference in value between US dollars and the currency of Mauritania, well, perhaps even just a few hundred US dollars would make it more than worth it to go out there and take pictures of any evidence that can be found. Seashells, whatever, but I'll get back to that in just a moment. First, let me also mention that there is evidence that this region was under the ocean far more recently than the tens of millions of years that some people claim, as non-fossilized whale bones have been found in the desert of Mauritania. And this example you're seeing here should not be confused with a different discovery in the Egyptian desert of actual fossils of whale bones. And you can clearly see the difference for yourself, as fossils are essentially bones that over millions of years became stone. So, if scientists claim that it takes more than 1 million years for bones to become fossils, why are there non-fossilized whale bones in the desert of Mauritania? But getting back to my potential offer to pay to see evidence of sea life at the Rikat, I received a number of outstanding comments of people that searched the Rikat structure through Google Earth and provided the coordinates to some very interesting satellite images of potential structures on the ground. What are these? Were these made in modern times? Here you can see various satellite photos of these structures followed by a zoomed out view so you can see where they were taken in relation to the Rikat. But look at this one located in the center island of the Rikat. It almost looks like the outline of a castle or something. Perhaps there is a simple explanation for it, but I might be willing to pay several hundred US dollars just to see a photo of what this looks like from the ground. It cannot be overstated just how remote this site is and how little it is visited. This is not a tourist attraction. This thing is in the middle of nowhere, and this is just another example of why the Rikat needs to be studied from the ground and excavated. And getting back to Herodotus' map, I mean, were you even aware of a 2,500-year-old map showing the location of Atlantis in northwest Africa? I mean, I'm sure some people have heard of it, but I went ahead and did a word scan through my YouTube creator dashboard of all the comments I've received in my 2 prior videos on Atlantis. And it appears that only 4 people mentioned this map. Just 4 out of nearly 25,000 comments between my 2 previous videos on Atlantis. In other words, it's fair to say that pretty much nobody has heard of this. And it's also worth pointing out that this map shows the Nile River going from east to west as various legends have long stated. And you know, this reminds me of a detail I pointed out in my previous video involving the recent land survey of Mauritania that identified a massive river that once ran through it. It seems to me that this river may have been the Nile, a possibility that hopefully scientists will research more in the future. But of course, many people rule out the possibility of the Eye of the Sahara being a possible location of Atlantis due to its current elevation above sea level, and I understand where people are coming from, but it really is time that we start asking new questions about what's geologically possible on this planet over a certain length of time in regards to land movement. It's right here in our faces, guys, and this discovery provides us with such a huge opportunity to not only learn about a lost civilization, but learn about the workings of planet Earth as well. We cannot assume that we know all there is to know. Now, let me take a moment to address a couple points of discussion that came up following my previous Atlantis videos. For instance, I used the example of floodmap.net to paint a picture for the viewer of how the Recot structure could be a feasible location and design for Atlantis if the area was at sea level some 12,000 years ago. Many people commented stating that if this were the case, Egypt would have to be under the ocean as well, but I'm suggesting that a region of the Western Sahara was lifted. I am not suggesting that the ocean was some 1,500 feet higher. And since there is no landrise.net, the floodmap.net comparison was just what I said it was in that video, to paint you a picture of what the Recot and surrounding area would look like if it ever was at sea level. Another point I want to bring up is in regards to my Antarctica comparison in relation to the speed at which land can rise over a period of time. Some have pointed out that the article I used stated that Antarctica is rising because the land is being lifted back up as the ice melts, causing something like a sponge effect, and those are my own words by the way, of the rising of the land with the reduced weight of the lost ice. But there is more to this, and the article specifically mentions it being pushed up by the flowing mantle beneath. Like I said in my prior video, I used this comparison to simply point out that it is possible for land to rise at a certain speed over a certain period of time. However, the Recot is a volcanic anomaly, and that's what volcanic activity does. It raises the ground. I think that most people understood what I was saying, but the skeptics jumped on this, and I would just like to encourage people to think for themselves, because that same article mentioned not one single word about volcanoes underneath Antarctica. Yet we know that there are at least 91 volcanoes underneath its ice, although scientists have not confirmed if those volcanoes are active or not. But surely some of them are, considering that there are at least 400 subglacial lakes underneath that ice. Obviously something is melting it to create those lakes that are underneath as much as 2 miles of ice. And it seems to me that the Antarctica land rise is related to that volcanic activity. Not because there's less ice and land is rising like a sponge or something, but that point is irrelevant because going back to the Recot, they haven't even drilled it. This illustration you see here is just that, an educated guess as to what's happened underneath. And apparently many scientists who have speculated about the Recot have never actually visited the site in person, so keep that in mind. So to close this video trilogy on the topic of Atlantis and the Recot structure, let me just say that I have not discovered anything. I only discovered a little-known documentary on the topic of Atlantis, and I am simply sharing that information with as many people as I possibly can. And that is the purpose of this channel. I have no desire to have something published in some scientific journal. That's for other nerds. I'm a different type of nerd. And nerd is a term of endearment, by the way, for me. My desire is to share information that I find interesting or important with the masses, and I will be discussing many different topics on this channel. And in the future, I will even be remaking certain videos I have now that already have millions of views, as I'm trying to build the quality of this channel, and some of those videos, just the presentation, various inaccuracies in the information, the editing, there's just a lot of room for improvement, so look forward to that. And keep in mind, I do 100% of this myself, and I'm learning as I go as far as my editing skills as well as just my delivery in front of the camera. And that reminds me, I will also be making a video in the future to talk more about me and who I am and what brought me on this journey to making YouTube videos. So look forward to that. But like I've said before, this is just the beginning of this channel. There is so much to be shared with the masses that far exceeds the topic of ancient civilization. That's just one thing. Humanity is starting to wake up to various truths, and I am going to accelerate that awakening. And I'm going to make some real noise while doing it. Mark my words. But I'll leave it at that. I'm Jimmy. This is Bright Insight. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on all of this involving Atlantis and the Recot structure. But to me, This is just so compelling that this requires excavation at this point. So I'll just leave it at that. I have a new video coming out around this time next week, so look forward to that. But take care, everybody.
My next video is from Matrix Wisdom. It's called Something Scientists Thought Was Impossible. This will change everything. This is a presentation about past life experiences and healing possibilities by orbs. So people, you might know what an orb is. It's just a light ball that some people are very sensitive to and can see that. And quite a few people are reporting that whatever illness they had, the orbs were able to heal that. And I'm introducing with this video a woman I like very much and I hold in high esteem. She is called Mary Rodwell, and she's a past life regressionist from Australia. She is doing this presentation and she gives quite a different explanation for autism, ADD or ADHD. Keep an open mind and you will find this very interesting. Enjoy the video.
Orbs are very much now part of the phenomena, I believe, and here is one that is adoring by Dr. Lena Olsen. The family, she said that this blue sphere was the size of a football in the bedroom, just above her husband's head, and out of it came a small sphere. When she poked it, it felt like a membrane, which broke. An electric green phosphorus color spread down her arms. We both felt it. The orb continued to move over my body to my knees. The saucer-shaped object inside the orb was still spinning. And there's a really important side to this in terms of many of the orbs healing. And then she read about similar kinds of things happening in the where the Canadian government had observed such phenomena, and the UFO came out the orb and expanded to be a large UFO and disappeared. So again, it's able to work within a kind of quantum hologram way. So in terms of our reality, it appears different. And she speculated this was some kind of time travel device. This one was kindly given to me by Grant Cameron because he's filmed this particularly, and he wrote it was the gentleman had a large tumour on the back of the neck. The orb caused the large tumour to disappear on a local experiencer. And this is the picture of the orb before it entered the body in the man's bedroom. This whole event was caught on camera. So the orbs are significant, and I think there's many things that we need to understand about them, although I'm going to show you a little bit more about the orbs in a minute. This was from a regression I did with a 15-year-old child in the UK who had experiences with his whole family. Both his grandmother, his mother and himself were having experiences, and I worked with him with hypnosis. And when he was in the hypnosis, he was basically communicating with the ETs. And he's asking questions himself in that space. And this is what he's saying. Why me? Oh, he says, I chose to do it. I volunteered to come back to Earth. I chose to do this. And he said, the two greys, they're still with me and they tell me to stay on track. I've been here on Earth 27 times before. And he spoke about the grey beings arriving in his garden one day when he was, and he could see orbs as well as the grey beings. And he said, in the regression, I can see orbs, whitey gold and two smaller ones. They're here to make me feel warm. They're family. The big one is Great Nana, and the other one's Nana's dad, grandfather, and granddad's brother. They're here to make me feel comfortable, to reassure me. So I asked him how he knew what the orbs of light were, and John said he just knew. So I asked, why were they there with him? And John said, they've come with the greys to support me, to make me feel comfortable so I wouldn't be frightened. When the greys left, the orbs of light went into the spacecraft with them. They do not mean to frighten us. Now, this takes this to the non-physical side of understanding souls. What do souls look like? What do spirits look like? Can they be orbs of light? It seems so. Certainly, this is more of the evidence that has come to me that when we travel out of body, we can travel in a Merkaba or an orb of light, same difference. The near-death experience is crucial to many people who've had encounters, and it is very much part of many people's experience when they wake up and get, if you like, get activated. We can be activated by seeing a UFO. We can be activated through our encounters. We can be activated shamanically. We can be activated through a deep grief experience, or as Dr. Olson is, when she had a near-death experience after having extreme septicemia and the doctors thought she should die, and when she miraculously survived. This is how she described it. When I thought of my kids, I could scroll back and forth in a sort of tunnel with photographs of them. In this experience, every bit of color lifted from my body, and when it came to my heart and head, instantly all pain left, and everything went dark. I felt happy, loved, something I'd never felt before. I thought of my kids. I could stroll back and forth in a tunnel. The photos looked more separate and intense as I went into them, and I checked up on thoughts and feelings of the kids and if they were doing okay. I could barely discern the night sky, the stars, and experienced an overwhelming feeling of love and belonging, and I was back, and then my brain blanked out and I woke later with the terrible ache in my body, and I thought, oh no, I'm back, and started to cry. The doctors who witnessed this agreed it was a miraculous recovery. She said she was instantly healed from massive sepsis. Her organs were undamaged, which was medically impossible. The transformative side of this, and there is so much evidence now, so many books on the transformative side of having a near-death experience. Dr. Olson also experienced this in high strangeness. She started to perceive auras, energies around people, able to see through solid objects, was knowing when someone was lying, encountered spirits and shared messages. The cherished encounters are with the extraterrestrials, both as visitors, teachers, and healers. This is really significant, and this is what the surveys with Free is actually showing us. She also found that she was given healing techniques from her non-visible friends, taught quantum healing through her encounters and how it reaches problems at the atomic level. She was taught how to enhance and direct energy, how to leave her body to go into the client's body and feel the problem. She does the same thing to connect to their past lives or problems in the present that can cause imbalances leading to the problem. She said, I correct and balance these imbalanced energies, and I reload them with higher frequencies. Thus, they're helped on an energy level. This is proven to halt cancers, and if the treatment ceases before it's cured, then the cancer grows back. So she said they need to be cured. They have to also be fully balanced. But now I'm going to take you into an area that I find extremely exciting, because there are children now being born, and there have been over the last 10 or 20 years. There are, I call the upgrades, the new human. They're demonstrating our future potential and of our extraterrestrial creators. Dr. Roger Lear, who wrote The Aliens and the Scalpel, not only did he take out implants that he found in individuals and filmed them, he also told me and was convinced. He said, I have come to the conclusion that not only are star children amongst us, but the rapid advancement of the human species is due to alien intervention in our bodies and minds. And he had done various research over 40 years in developmental stages in children, and he was noticing there was a distinct change in acceleration in developmental patterns, such as the age of walking, talking, etc. And these had accelerated anything from 60 to 80%. So the new human, born with full awareness into terrestrial consciousness. And this to me is the exciting thing here. The conscious awareness of these new babies is increasing to override the dominant conditioning and programming that occurs from birth with these new children. The DNA of the new human has tenfold the amount of information. Things such as telepathy, manipulation of time and space, and non-verbal communication are all conscious abilities and is natural. Learning skills and abilities are more advanced. Their molecular structure allows the cells of the body to vibrate faster. Everything is accelerated, including the immune systems. And I was very heartened, finally, to meet two molecular biologists who are basically saying the same thing. Dr. William Brown, some years after Tracy Taylor, the experiencer, that commented on the new children in the way that she has done. And this is what he's saying. I believe genetic modification is recurring right now in utero. They're actually producing new humans. Their new genetic architecture allows them to see the world in a multidimensional fashion. I believe research would show dormant genetic regions are being integrated into the biological systems occurring in all of us to produce expanded awareness. The exponential increase in ADD, autistic indigo children. Their brains work faster. I believe they already know what they're being taught. The intrinsic understanding of knowledge and information operates at biomolecular level. It's transgenerational information. It is encoded within the atomic structure of the DNA molecule and can be accessed more efficiently to produce savant-like characteristics. And this is what I'm discovering too. The modification of the DNA is more like remodeling of the genome to make dormant regions accessible again. And there are many ways this is occurring, I believe, through the scripts, through the languages, through artwork, through music. There are many different ways that we're being activated. The hybrids are altogether a new species of human. And here we've got Dr. Lena Olson, who's calling them the letter people. The letter people, she says, bring different multidimensional skills to humanity. And she's saying exactly the same thing. Programs such as ADD, ADHD, Asperger's are letter people. I do not believe these are broken genes, but instead offering a new multidimensional skills to prevent limited reprogramming of a third dimensional reality. So by being different, they are harder to program and condition into our outmoded 3D reality. It's not so simple as foreign DNA. It's a combination of genetically improved bodies in combination with souls from different places in our universe, incarnating in these improved bodies. The souls have different frequencies, vibrations, depending on the evolutionary status, and that plays a role in activation of the DNA in that particular body. I believe we also have to take into account the collective soul of Homo sapiens. And this is some of the differences that she's already tested for. Above normal sensory cells for pressure in the skin. She can hear above and below the normal range. She's aware of minute differences in shades of colors than normal. Taste and smell are enhanced. She's sensitive to all frequencies and would feel overwhelmed at times by sensory overload. Sensitivity to radioactive radiation. Energy fields and energies beaming out of angry people, as well as love and happiness. And she said, if that we can learn to focus and control our own energy field, we would be less prone to get ill from our surroundings. We can use our own self-healing abilities. One of the lovely ways of understanding his experience of being ADHD is Neil Gold. He's a wonderful researcher, lives in Hong Kong, and wrote the book, Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind. And really, Neil gave me a clue to what may be going on and why so many of our children now are different and why they're being born to those with encounters and they have such programs such as ADHD or Asperger's or certain types of autism, for example. Why would these intelligences produce or be part of this kind of shift in agenda? What does it mean? There must be a reason behind it. And this is how he understands his ADHD. And I think it says it all. He calls it always dialed into higher dimensions. And in his book, he explains that his internet browser can browse into chaos, be it here on Earth or in the multiverse. I can perceive hidden layers of order and make sense of it. So this is what the ADHD child is doing. ADHD, I'm not limited to the square template of the universe. I'm wired into a multi-dimensional universe. And this, I believe, is what is behind the new programs. They are deliberately created in a way that they are not trapped or conditioned into into the 3D inaccurate reality that most of us get conditioned into. It makes it harder for them to be programmed. And sadly, what are we doing is we are dosing them up and shutting them down so that we can program them into this very 3D limited reality. What I'm finding is with the children that before they get too conditioned and too programmed are telling me their understanding. And some of this is absolutely profound. Some of these children are, under 10, and they're coming up with concepts that there's no way they have of knowing in normal society or in normal education. They're explaining consciously many of their past life experiences, where they're from. And remember that they don't watch talk shows. They don't read books on this. This is coming with a clarity and a purity that, the older generations of experience have had conditioned out of them. I talked to a father in the UK with his 10-year-old son who told me quite comfortably that his origin was through a portal in the sun. So many of these children are born these days, Tracy says, that have memories intact from their previous existence on board craft as extraterrestrials.
My next video is from Thunderbolt's project. It's called Beyond the Dark and Empty Universe, Space News. I consider this video bringing about very important information about our universe. So enjoy this video.
Welcome to Space News from the Electric Universe, brought to you by the Thunderbolts Project at thunderbolts.info. The following presentation is an adaptation of the Mel Acheson Teapot, Beyond Dark and Empty. The link to the article may be found in the description box of this video. Before the space age, astronomers looked up at the night sky and saw points and patches of light. With the aid of telescopes, they could see more points and patches. And with the aid of spectroscopes, they could discover what the points and patches were made of and how they moved. But the points and patches were few and far away. The universe appeared dark and empty. Astronomers assumed that if they detected nothing, nothing was there. They conceived theories to explain how those points of light could be lumps of familiar solids, liquids, and gases that persisted and moved in the darkness and emptiness. The theory of gravity explained how a cloud of hydrogen could squeeze itself together and heat up. The atomic theory explained how that hot hydrogen could start nuclear reactions and produce more heat. The kinetic theory of gases explained how the pressure from the heat could balance the pressure from the gravity to create a star. The explanations fit together precisely into a theory of stellar evolution that described everything, or almost everything, seen in the dark and empty universe. Then the space age extended our sense of sight to include the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves to gamma rays. It extended our sense of touch to the planets and asteroids and comets, and to the sun. We stuck the fingers of our probes into the dark and empty spaces. Our sensory sampling of the universe was liberated from the limitations of our biological niche on the surface of a wet and rocky planet. We could sniff the solar wind, taste the rocks on Mars, and see the X-rays from comets. We discovered the universe is bursting with plasma, a state of matter almost unknown to our previous geocentric and anthropocentric condition. Plasma is often mistaken for a hot gas, but it doesn't behave as familiar gases do. Instead of merely expanding when heated, it pinches into filaments and cells and jets and donuts. It generates magnetic fields and microwave noise and X-ray bursts. It accelerates particles to relativistic velocities and polarizes radiation. It conducts electric currents and transmits power across large distances. It gathers matter from the surrounding space and separates it into shells of like composition. Now the universe appears bright and full. Jupiter's magnetosphere, shining in radio frequencies, looks twice the size of the Sun or Moon. Saturn's magnetosphere appears a quarter the size of the Sun. Venus looks like a monstrous comet whose tail sweeps by us every time it passes between Earth and the Sun. Mars sparkles with X-rays. The Veil Nebula stretches 6 times the width of the Moon. Its glowing filaments corkscrew around each other to form a celestial caduceus. The Rosette Nebula covers 6 times the area of the full Moon. Flaming tridents thrust out of incandescent undulations that wrap themselves into an interstellar Ouroboros. The telescopic dot of a galaxy we call M49 is the invisible center of a cloud of radio emission connecting thousands of galaxies and filling a quarter of the sky. The clouds swirl into the north, throwing out knots of X-ray brilliance like astronomical fireworks. The cloud also swirls into the southern sky, where another spray of brilliance erupts. On the other side of the sky swirls a similar cloud. Even the spaces between these glowing plasma cells are filled with the electromagnetic fields of Birkeland, quote, transmission lines. We have stumbled into this bright and full universe with minds still adapted to dark and empty theories. We squint our imaginations and shade our thoughts with dogma. We try to adapt our dark and empty theories to these new sensory experiences. The assumption that detecting nothing means nothing is there is the assumption of a man standing in a dark room. But when he moves, he detects the furniture with his shins. Space probes are the shins of astronomy. They have moved away from the Earth and away from biological senses. They have detected the electrical furniture in space by getting blasted with unexpected radiation and shocked with unforeseen currents. Moving vicariously through the dark spaces with technologically enhanced senses, astronomers who can't see the light can feel the heat. Space is not the only domain of experience that has appeared dark and empty. Ancient history, myths, art, and rituals contain much that is obscure. They describe fantastical objects. They depict images devoid of mundane designations. They seem to have little coherent relation to the world of our geocentric and anthropocentric senses. Many modern social structures and behaviors appear irrational and senseless as well. Wars and oppressions trace their motivations into the shadows of the past. Institutions perpetuate arbitrary yet orderly traditions. The shins of astronomy have also stumbled into the furniture in this social room. The patterns of human expression now appear to emanate from an archaic spectacle of plasma discharges not seen again until space probes detected them in other stars, and plasma physicists reproduced them in laboratories. Our history looks back to an origin in a primordial experience of celestial plasma on Earth. That experience was both traumatic and galvanic. It brought us both scotoma and lucidity, depravity and nobility. It may have been the genesis of consciousness. We've been obsessed to memorialize it in art and rituals and institutions. We have been compelled to repress it and to deny it, but also to imitate it in battles and genocides. But we have also transformed it. Artistic imagination turned that experience of suprahuman events into human expression and meaningfulness. Scientific curiosity turned it into understandings of the nature of things, which empowered development of technologies. Economic inventiveness turned it into the production of wealth through trade and the division of labor. Political conation turned it into diplomacy, social organization, and statesmanship. Religious meditation turned it into spiritual enlightenment. The space age brings us a vision not only of a cosmos bright with new senses and full of new phenomena, but also a history bright with new sensibilities and full of new self-identity. Our ancestors, and therefore we, are neither the victims of dark ignorance, nor the dupes of empty superstition, but the creators of a developing lucidity and meaningfulness. We are not merely survivors, but heirs. Our opportunity and our responsibility is to invest the profits of the inherited dark and empty theories in new, bright, and full ventures.
My last video tonight is from Ancient Architects, and it is called The Great Pyramid of Egypt as a rain machine. They are proposing a very interesting new theory in this video that I have never heard of before, so enjoy.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. Back in 2011, Time magazine carried the headline that scientists create 52 artificial rainstorms in Abu Dhabi desert after hail, lightning and gales swept through the state's eastern region. Scientists working for the United Arab Emirates government artificially created rain where rain is generally nowhere to be found. The $11 million project began in July 2010 and used steel lampshade-looking ionizers in the desert to produce charged particles. The negatively charged ions rose through the hot air, attracting dust. Moisture then condensed around the dust and eventually produced rain clouds. On the 52 days it rained in the region, throughout July and August, forecasters did not predict any rain. It was a secret program, but meddling with Mother Nature is nothing new, and China has been tinkering with cloud seeding for years, but not always successfully. The idea that countries in the Middle East could actually create rain in this water-poor region could go a long way to solving the area's problems with drought. But how controllable the weather can be is still in doubt, and consequences of meddling with nature at this level are yet to be seen. Many scientists disagree with the concept, and Roloff Bruntis, a meteorologist at the US National Center for Atmospheric Research, says that rain enhancement has no scientific basis. The ionizers looked like poles extending 33 feet into the air, with an ionization grid just a few meters wide. Each used 500 watts of electric power, or less than what you use turning on an electric oven. In theory, ions or charged particles attach to the condensation nuclei in clouds and enable them to survive longer in the atmosphere. The longer they survive, the more time water droplets have to grow on their surfaces, and then clouds then form and the rain is released. So what has this got to do with the ancient architects of Egypt? I've been looking at the Egyptian pyramids in some depth over the past 12 months, and I think that if we strip it all back and look at some basic observations regarding the pyramids, we should now have some idea of what the most important points are to take home. Each and every pyramid is located along the banks of the River Nile, before its gradual migration towards the east over the past few thousand years. Each pyramid had a causeway extending west to east and ending at the river. I strongly believe that this was not a walkway but a canal, a way to transport the flowing water of the Nile to each pyramid. The causeways and also the positioning of the pyramids says to me that water was an important part of the functioning of these monuments. Each pyramid was also surrounded by a wall, which I believe was to contain the water that was brought to the pyramids from the River Nile by their respective causeways. If it wasn't for this, there is no logical reason to surround the pyramids in such a manner. Geometry, mathematics and acoustics are also key parts of each pyramid structure. As many of you already know, they were precision monuments, and although this could simply be to conserve knowledge for future generations as many believe, I can't accept that they didn't have a function as well. The acoustic characteristics of the Great Pyramid are well known, and researchers and visitors of the Grand Gallery in King's Chamber have often experienced this, and it is all due to reverberation that occurs due to the resonance of sound waves. And this is certainly no coincidence. The architects clearly planned this deliberate feature of the Great Pyramid. The resonance of sound waves in, for example, the King's Chamber is strongly dependent on the size of the chamber, and its dimensions are deliberately chosen. Everything is consciously chosen in the construction of the internal and external pyramid. So, precision, acoustics and the addition of water are all clear and obvious features of the Great Pyramid, and I don't believe it had just one function but was once a multifunctional monument, something that did a lot of different things on top of the fact that it has of course conserved important knowledge across the generations. This video is focusing on one such function. In fact, it is a number of functions resulting in one overriding purpose. It is the belief of many that the Great Pyramid was in fact a rain machine, something that thanks to the news that came out from the Middle East in 2011 certainly isn't pseudoscience. It is in fact very real. Over the past year, I have made a few videos that discuss the pyramid water pump hypothesis. It states that water filled up the area between the outer perimeter wall and the pyramid until it was high enough to reach the entrance to the descending passageway. From there, it avalanched down, and thanks to the work of John Cadman and the scale models he produced of the passageways, well shaft, grotto and subterranean chamber, he showed how these parts of the Great Pyramid acted and worked together as a hydraulic pump. Cadman's model showed that the action of the pump created a vertical compression wave, which proves that the pump mechanism had an acoustic element, which in my opinion is the most important part of the pyramid. His small-scale model produced a heartbeat-like thump that could be felt through the ground 20 feet away and heard for nearly 100 feet. Because of the powerful pulses that it generated, Cadman named it the pulse generator. But the water pump isn't where the pyramid's function ends, it is merely the beginning. If the Great Pyramid was just a water pump, there would be no need for the Queen's Chamber, King's Chamber and Grand Gallery. Although the ability to move water is of great use to the ancient people, the pulse is the most important element. It started the engine of the Great Pyramid. The King's Chamber, as we know, is built entirely from slabs of granite. The floors, the walls and the ceiling, and are placed into position in such a way that they are allowed to vibrate, and just above the chamber are also 5 rows of granite beams. Granite has specific resonance qualities in that it vibrates at a certain frequency, and the fact that each granite beam has one rough, uneven face says to me that this was to finely tune the granite. It is hard to doubt that the King's Chamber and overlying granite beams are in place to create resonance. A number of researchers believe there are missing resonators in the Grand Gallery, which would have turned the water pump vibrations into sound. This in turn would cause the granite in the King's Chamber to resonate or sing, further amplified by the resonating granite beams above. According to researcher Edward F. Malkowski, the resonating granite would create an electric field in the atmosphere above. Without going too far into the detail, the fact is, the Great Pyramid was a giant piezoelectric transducer with so many integral parts that needed to be finely crafted together to work. The Great Pyramid truly is a work of art. The piezoelectric effect, turning vibration or sound into electricity, is used everywhere in our electronics today, and is obviously a fundamental reason why the materials chosen were used. For example, the granite in the King's Chamber contains an unusually high concentration of quartz, and if the resonators in the Grand Gallery created the right resonant frequencies, which I'm sure they did, electrical plasma would have been produced. Just recently, in August 2018, scientists confirmed that the Great Pyramid could concentrate electromagnetic energy inside its chambers, and most alternative researchers now believe that electricity was the main product of the working pyramid machine. But what could this electrical energy be used for? I'm not yet convinced that the electricity was used to power tools or such things, but of course I don't rule it out. Obelisks that were scattered around Egypt were the right shape to receive transmitted energy after all. Some believe the energy was part of a global network, an ancient power grid, connecting other pyramidal structures across the globe, maybe for communication. But again, for some reason, I doubt it. But yes, I could be wrong. What we know is that a functional Great Pyramid, and I'm sure other pyramid structures as well, would have pumped electrical energy into the sky. But the question is why? Recently, I was messaged by a subscriber on my Facebook page, and he thinks that if the Earth's magnetic fields suffered at the hands of a coronal mass ejection from the Sun, as Robert Schoch believes happened way back in antiquity, then the electric discharge from the pyramids may have been to stabilise or strengthen the Earth's magnetic field. I don't know if science can back up such a claim, or even if our own scientific research is this advanced, but it's a concept that certainly requires further research. But as the title of this video shows, I think the Great Pyramid may have been built in part to gain or regain control of the climate, and to encourage rainfall as Egypt was becoming more arid. Yes, some people may think this is almost too trivial a purpose and prefer the power plant hypothesis, but for me, building a power plant in times of upheaval is a luxury, not a necessity. Whilst artificially getting the climate under control and influencing nature could have effectively saved a civilization, and if a grand building plan could achieve this, it would certainly have been worth the effort. The paper titled The Overall Science Behind the Pyramid by K.S. Vishwanath Vashisht, Assistant Professor at the Department of Aerospace Engineering at Amity University, says that the electromagnetic field that is formed by the pyramid is made up of negative ions, and a gold or copper capstone could have encouraged this further. As discussed at the start of this video, it was negative ions that were artificially released in recent years in the Abu Dhabi desert that was the basis for producing artificial rainfall. These negative ions attract dust. Moisture condenses around the dust and eventually produces rain clouds. Was the Great Pyramid doing the same thing thousands of years ago, but on a far grander scale? The rain machine hypothesis isn't anything new, but if it is true, this is one hypothesis that could throw into doubt the age of the weathering and erosion of the Giza Plateau. Geological analysis of the Sphinx enclosure, the Tomb of Kenkaway, and the perimeter wall of the Pyramid of Khafre show that rain erosion is apparent at Giza, and therefore has to date back to 7 to 12,000 years ago. But if the pyramids did artificially create rainfall over the northern Lower Egypt, then maybe rainfall was common much more recently than 7 to 12,000 years ago. One of the earliest videos I ever made touched on this idea that the pyramids were built by the first king of Upper and Lower Egypt called Narmer to stop the desertification of Lower Egypt, which would have had devastating consequences for the country as the desert was encroaching on the main settlements of Egypt between 3 and 4000 BC. This video is just an overview and an idea, and no, there isn't any specific detail due to the complex nature of the science. But of course, I would be interested to hear your thoughts. Maybe the Great Pyramid was a rain machine, a wireless energy generator and transmitter, part of a worldwide grid of wireless energy, or a way to repair the electromagnetic field of the Earth. Or maybe it was all of these things. One thing is for sure, the more we talk about it, the more we think about it, the more we learn. And I just hope that one day soon we can prove once and for all just what the purpose was of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. I want to continue my natural vision improvement work with you today and invite you all to participate. So please make sure you are sitting comfortably wherever you are. Take off your glasses. Remove your contact lenses if you can. If not, just leave them in. Before we start doing anything at all, just look around in your space. Just be aware how your vision is right now, what you see, what your eyes are interested in, how you feel, how your eyes are doing. Again, check out if you are tired, if they are itchy, if they are dry, if they are a bit achy, the whole eye area. Just become aware of it. And now come back into your awareness of sitting on the chair. Relax your shoulders. Take a deep breath. What I want to do now is to go through the eye exercises that I have taught you before, I want to go through it again with you together. So the first one, take your thumb and index finger of your left hand and grab your left eyebrow over the bridge of your nose and squeeze your eyebrow to the other end 3 times. Okay, change over to the other side. Same thing, 3 times. Okay, now lift up your eyebrows up and down. Do this for a moment and be aware of if it's easy, if it's still heavy, whatever you're experiencing. Somebody asks me why we squeeze the eyebrow and not the bottom part of the eye. We squeeze the eyebrow because in this kind of area here all over you find tiny nerve endings. When we squeeze it, we invigorate all these tiny nerve endings that give impulses to the brain to send blood flow and oxygen into the eye area here. And apart from this, it has all to do with muscles. And the more easier we can move the eyebrows, particularly when we wear glasses, contact lenses as well, but particular glasses, you are so focused with your eyes to look through the tiny area of the lenses that the whole area here is not moving at all because it doesn't have to. Your eyes don't have to work at getting any kind of clarity. So it gets really stiff and tired and not flexible at all anymore. So we need to bring the blood flow. We need to squeeze the tiny nerve endings to get energy into the whole eye area. Here it wouldn't do anything at all to do this here. It's not the same. Good. After we have worked on our eyebrows, have your eyes wide open and turn your head, catch all the light. Just leave your eyes wide open. Come back to the center. Now again, turn your head, but start blinking. Very lightly, like a butterfly. Very lightly. Come back to the center. And now, squeeze your eyes and open 7 times. But make sure you're not squeezing with your whole face, but with your eye area only. It's more difficult, but more effective. Open, squeezing, open, squeezing, open, squeezing, open, squeezing, open, squeezing, open. And now a quick one. So, eyes wide open, turn your head, blinking, turn your head, come back to the center and squeeze your eyes, open, squeezing, open, squeezing, open. Whew. After this hard work, give it a good stretch and yawn loud if you can. And check out, before we do the next one, how your eye area all around, how it feels now. If it feels a bit warm, if it feels a bit, might even feel a bit achy from all the hard work, which is a good sign, because we have worked all the surrounding muscles of the eyeball, really. Okay, let's start with the second one. Last week, I introduced the infinity sign, and I want to continue doing the infinity sign with you together. So before we start anything, try to remember the white background. Try to remember to put the magic pencil at the tip of your nose, or what is even better, a black marker. The aim is to draw on our imaginary white background, to draw with the nose the infinity sign in the color black. So let's get started. Make sure your shoulders are loose, you're sitting comfortably. Close your eyes and imagine this thick black marker at the tip of your nose and the white background. And now with your marker, start drawing the infinity sign into the air 10 times. And try to draw in the color black. I know it is very difficult. And if you can't produce the color black at all, just pretend you do. And now, don't open your eyes, but continue to draw the infinity sign, starting in the other direction. Again, 10 times, please. And again, try to imagine the color black when you're drawing the sign. And when you have finished, and slowly open your eyes, see how your eye area feels. You might maybe feel a bit dizzy, but that's okay, that's fine. This is simply your brain having to cope with the kind of movement right now. So that's not a problem. So from where you are now, again, look around in your environment. Try to find out if anything is different now. I'm not talking about clarity, just some things might be different. You might notice more, you might find it's lighter, something is different. Good. Today I'm introducing the eye exercise number 3, which will be a bit tricky and you might find it very difficult at first. But I ask you to be diligent and to continue doing this because the effect on your visual brain is immense. So before you do anything, just watch me what I'm doing. So I'm taking my right hand, my index finger. I support my elbow with my left hand. I have my index finger slightly lower than my nose. So my nose is just above my index finger. My index finger is a bit further away from my body. And now what I do, my eyes are not supposed to do anything at all. They are allowed to space out. And my nose now sweeps over my index finger. I show you what I mean. And I do this as long as I know, I do this, how can I put it? If I notice that my finger starts moving, although it is stationary, but I get the impression that my finger is moving. Then I continue the head movement, but close my eyes and continue. So let's do this together. At your nose, sweep over the index finger. Your eyes are not looking at anything at all. They are just spacing out. And somehow you're just aware of your finger being there until you feel that your finger is moving into the opposite direction that where your nose is. When you get this impression, close your eyes and continue. And when you have closed your eyes and continue, then you might notice that your finger is moving even stronger. Just get the experience, just stay with this and do this for a while. And when you have got the idea that your finger is moving and you have the experience of having your eyes closed and again maintain the image or the experience that the finger is moving, then stop doing the movement, relax your arm, slowly open your eyes, and again look around and again check in how your eye area, particularly here, above here, is feeling now. This exercise is quite weird, and for some people it takes time to get the idea that the finger is moving. So if you didn't get it today, don't give up. It will happen sooner or later. Just include this exercise into the other two that I showed you already, so that you have a set of 3 different exercises to do every day, whenever you can do it, wherever. It has to fit into your life, wherever it is possible. But doing these 3 exercises is the best thing you could do for your improvement of your vision, for the health of your eyes, and for improving your visual memory, your visual brain as such. So to repeat again, so if you didn't get the idea that your finger is moving, don't get disheartened, just continue until finally it will happen. What this last exercise does to your eyes and to the 6 eye muscles that hold the eyeball in place and are able to move it around into all kinds of directions is, although we are not actively doing anything with the eyes, by getting the impression of the moving finger, the eye muscles start working, because for the brain it is real. For the brain, the eyes really have to move along with the finger, when in fact it's not happening. But we want to coax the brain into movement that is not there, to get the same kind of experience as if we would move all our eyes into all kinds of directions. So you might feel a little bit tense over the top of your eyes, and that's a good sign. So I hope you got it, what I tried to introduce, and we will do the same next time, so to reinforce the message, so to speak. If you have more questions, please ask me. Otherwise, I want to give you a short story again, to imagine, to improve your visual memory, to improve your visual brain. So make sure again that you're sitting comfortably in your chair. The story I'm reading to you is a bit different from the stories before. Before in these stories you were quite receptive really, and just your brain producing the images. So this time I asked you in the story to move yourself. So this will be a very interesting experience. Make sure that your hands are getting warm and flexible. Have your fingers crossed. Put your crossed fingers over the bridge of your nose, covering your eyes. Have your eyes closed. And with your eyes closed, imagine you put the magic pencil on the end of your nose and sketch an apple tree in the center of your visual field. Draw the grayish trunk with its branches stretching up in the clear blue sky. Draw the fingery roots extending down into the rich, loamy earth. Add some apple green leaves. Ask your internal lighting crew for some terrific sunlight to flood the scene and illuminate the shiny red apples that gleam in the branches. Imagine that you walk forward in your field, right up to the tree. Smell the aroma of sun-warmed grass and leaves. Reach up and pluck a single crimson apple. Polish it on your sleeve and hold it up to the light. See your face reflected in its glowing surface. Sniff the apple and take a bite. Savor the crunch and the sweet juice that fills your mouth. Toss the apple up into the clear blue sky. Aha! It descends as a red rubber ball. Throw the ball far into the distance. Follow it with your nose. It grows smaller and smaller until it disappears at the horizon. Call the ball back. It reappears wherever, bouncing gaily towards you. Call it into your hands. Circle and examine it with your nose. Has it collected any marks on its journey? Is it ready to fly again? Does it want to leap and sparkle and cover great distance in a single bound? Let it. The red ball is your friend and is available anytime, anywhere, to help you develop flexibility in your imagination and movement in your eyes. With this image of the red rubber ball in your hand, I want you to slowly come back into your body. Feel yourself sitting on the chair. Feel your feet on the ground. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And again, look around in your environment and just be aware of what you can see, what you're interested in. see how your eyes feel at the moment. If they are relaxed, the whole eye area now is relaxed. How you feel in your body, how you feel emotionally, how everything. If you feel peaceful, if you feel at ease. Just be aware of all those things. And if you have no further questions for today, I would like to finish and see you again next week. Goodbye.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lainey Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.